Welcome to my Accent is No Accident podcast. I'm your host, Maritza Perez. Our guest today is not just a businessman. He's also a race car driver, motivational speaker, and autism super dad. With an entrepreneurial spirit and heart for making a difference, Jordan Modiano has built a life centered on passion and purpose. In 2015, he founded Express Employment Professionals of Albany with a mission to help people. His Saratoga office followed in 2019. Jordan's not just a businessman, he is also a race car driver, motivational speaker, and autism super dad. His nonprofit Races for Autism reflects his commitment to supporting the autism community. Jordan's dedication to his wife and daughter and community shapes everything he does. His motto, work hard, play hard, and change the world for one person at a time. Welcome, Jordan. It is an honor to have you with us today.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
I'm very happy for this conversation. But before we start with the full interview, I would like to ask you our theme question. What is your accent and why is not an accident?
What is my accent and why is it not an accident? So, fully and literally, my accent is a downstate New York accent, and I live upstate New York now. However, why it's no accident? It's the things and the values that I learned growing up. It's the knowledge from being on the streets in downstate New York that I've taken with me and that I've used to propel me in my life. It's all of those things. And, when you think about an accent, it's what somebody it's the dialect they get growing up, but it's more than that. It becomes who their persona is, but that changes over time. People reinvent themselves. And just because you're from one place and you have one set of standards and values doesn't mean you can't change that, grow it, and impact the world in a different way than what you were necessarily born or given. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. That is true. We change throughout our lives and we become a
We
different
do.
person
And there's a
throughout.
foundation
Yeah.
that's there. And, hopefully it's a good foundation upon to which to build. I think mine was, which was great. But not everybody has that. So some people need to reinvent, and that's okay too. I've done some reinventing and repurposing and keep on growing. But
Exactly.
that downstate city voice does come out sometimes.
Yes, that's true. And then, but it helps us to also identify with who we are, our core values, that they probably stay, but we reshape them as we grow and as we go through different phases of our lives. Like, I know you started in the automobile industry, and then throughout your life, you decided to move into a different direction. You want to talk about that?
So yeah, right out of school, I started into the automotive industry and, 20 years or whatever in that. And then I went into the advertising business and I was in the advertising business for quite some time. And it was pretty cool. I was motivated by the money you could make. I was motivated by the excitement of sales because I was in sales. But I remember one day, a very specific day, and I tell the story, and it was definitely a defining moment. And we all have those defining moments. So it was a Monday, and I was driving to work. I remember exactly where I was, and I was stopped at the light waiting to make a left turn, literally 4 minutes from work. And my wife, who's a school psychologist in a an elementary school, called me to tell me she wasn't going to be in the elementary school that day. She was going to the high school. And I said, why? And she told me, unfortunately, a student had committed suicide over the
Oh,
weekend. So she was going to the high school to counsel students, counsel parents, counsel teachers, anybody who needed it. And in the same moment, I was proud, I was sad, and I was jealous or envious, whatever word you want to use. Proud. Why? Because my wife is going to make a difference. Proud because that's what she was gets to do that day. Sad because that's a crummy job that she has to do, and sad that somebody felt so hopeless that they take their life, especially at such a young age. Sad for parents, family, friends, etc. And jealous because I didn't make a difference. What I did just didn't matter. It had no impact. And I'll never forget that. So years later, because that was 2004, 2005, someplace around there. Years later, I was looking for my next venture in life, and a friend of mine said, "Look at staffing." And I was like, "What do I know about staffing?" And he said, "What do you need to know? You know how to sell, you know how to lead, and you like helping people, and you have a lot of connections." So I looked at staffing. I found a franchise. I found Express Employment, and for me, I wanted to make sure that this business was something that I could do financially, that it was financially rewarding. But as I learned more about it, I really learned like I'm going to get to impact people's lives. I'm going to get to do that part of what's been missing, that that part of my accent that's been hidden and dumbed down or not been there.
Yeah.
And we got to do it, and we get to do it every day. It's just amazing. We literally we help people, we change people's lives, and it it to a degree fell into my lap, but it's also a choice. And the choice is to embrace it and to, remember that some days there's just more bad days than good days, but on the good days, we're impacting people's lives and we make a really big difference. And there's nothing better than that.
And that is very important to understand that sometimes, no matter, maybe we're doing it because you were successful in what you were doing, but then you wanted to create a more impactful um, accent to others, right?
Absolutely. I help the
So
people.
exactly, to help others. And then staffing was the way to go for you because it will bring work to other people.
It will, and it became a stepping stone. It helps me. It helps me get my voice into other people where I can talk to other people and motivate and help other folks. And, by doing staffing, I've had the opportunity to go and talk to communities, like people who are alcoholics or people who are addicts or people who are overcoming something. I've had the opportunity to go and impart wisdom or impart some stories and share some stuff and give some of those people hopefully some hope and some direction and share successes with other folks. So I think as humans, it's our job to leave the world a better place than we found it. And it starts with every time you have an impact with somebody or a contact with somebody, try and make an impact, try and leave them a little bit better off than you found them.
Where what you're saying is very important because you are talking about like creating a difference for everybody, no matter where they come from, what are they doing, what have they or not accomplished, but what they can be and where they can go.
100% create for everybody. And the way to do it for me at this point in time is one person at a time. And if that's one person at a time, even if I'm talking to an audience of 10,000 people, it's still one person at a time because everybody in that audience got there with a different accent, different
Mhm.
experiences. So what they're going to hear from me, they take in differently, they take in separately, and it's become individual to each of them. So my job becomes to find something that resonates with everybody. And hopefully they can take something and share it with somebody else. And then this has a ripple effect. So I touch one and they touch two and they touch two and they touch two. My one person just turns into 10.
Exactly. And that is when you started like to realize that leadership and talking about leadership will change people's lives.
So I learned that I was a good leader early on, and it's just something that came natural to me, or maybe I learned it from my parents. I can't tell you how or where I got it because I started a business when I was young, didn't know what I was doing, made thousands of mistakes. but I built some loyal teams and I built some loyal people. And I never knew that I did that until later on when I started taking classes in leadership. And I'm like, wait, I did that and I did that. And, some of that stuff came to me naturally. And I thank God for that. All the other stuff that I needed did not. And I totally failed on that stuff. But sometimes you got to fail to learn. But when we were working with Express, one of the things we noticed is we would send people to work at a warehouse or at a hotel or in an office, and people would get fired. So we'd send other people and they'd get fired. So we'd send other people and they'd get fired. And we'd take those same exact people and send them someplace else and they would flourish. And after a while, you pick up on trends. So it's not the people, it's the place. So what's wrong with the place? And what I've learned over time, and every business has seen it, is you have people who are very good at what they do. They're a great salesperson. They're a great manufacturing person. They're great at whatever it is they do. So since they know the job so well, they get promoted to a manager's role where they have to oversee people. And managers are not leaders. And I've shared this over and over and over. Managers are great. The world needs managers. We need people to manage an operation. We need people to manage inventory. We need people to manage finances. We need people to manage products. What we don't need, or a process, what we don't need is managing people. People are living, breathing things. We need leaders. And leaders are completely different characteristic than managers. Yes, there's some manager components in a leader, but you lead people. You don't manage people. And I really started to get into some of these companies and say, okay, we have a problem here. The reason you have so much turnover, the reason you have so much retention issues, the reason that people are unhappy isn't because of your pay rate. It isn't because of the environment per se, hot, cold, etc. It's because of how people are being made to feel. And that has everything to do with the leadership.
So basically what you're saying is leaders, although yes, we know that they need to have the capability to lead people, is basically leaders have to be in the back, having people grow, watching people grow and letting them grow.
I say leaders are supposed to be hero makers. Okay. They're supposed to make everybody else the hero. And I think everybody is supposed to be a leader. I don't think there's anybody who can get away from not being a leader. If you're a parent, you're supposed to lead your kids. You're supposed to lead them to greatness in this world. You're supposed to show them the way and guide them. Let them make mistakes, but be there to catch them if it's too big of a mistake. Okay. So if you're on a team, everybody on a team should lead in some capacity at some point in time. Leading is more than just, hey, you go do that. It's that initiative. It's that helping other people to be the best that they can possibly be. And think about if you were to be on a team of any group of individuals and everybody had the mindset of, I want to help everybody else be the best they can be. Everybody becomes a leader. How great is that team? All right. And that team becomes a team that it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to fail. Somebody else is just going to pick you back up again. They're not going to beat you down.
And also I think that so you just touched something that I always preach about, and is the leaders are aware of the team commitment, and that always tell people we are a team and one person cannot do it all, but we all have to do it together and we grow together.
It's the old adage, there's no I in team. There's no I in team. There isn't. And so many managers make the mistake. They want to help their team succeed. They go out and do the work for their team. That doesn't work either. If you're truly going to help somebody, they have to do the work. They've got to do the sweat, the blood, the tears, everything else that it's going to take. But you've got to be there to coach them and to help them and to grow them, to show them the path and to let them fail. You have to let them fail. Some people, they've forgotten that. As humans, we are born to fail. I don't know of any baby who on their first attempt walked. and on their first attempt could run, and on their first attempt could ride a bicycle. Doesn't happen. Okay. We have to fall down and get back up. We've got to do that. Leaders need to let our people do the same exact thing. How else do you build that greatness? How else do you build that resilience? And if we're not doing that, we're setting people up to fail.
Exactly. You
Now,
know that you said something important, and one time we were talking with my team, and then I said something that I heard somebody else, and I don't remember, so I cannot tell you who said it. But they said, how many people remember how many times they fell when they were learning to walk? And it's like, we don't remember. I don't think anyone remembers how many times you fell.
no, you don't. You remember the one time you succeeded. Okay. It's funny how the mind works like that. So, and the mind is a really, I know we were going here, but the mind is such a strange thing because we will focus on the negatives and stay on those negatives, but then we forget some of it. The some of it where we accomplish something, we forget all the other negative. All right. But we don't use that positive self talk either. We don't use
Exactly.
that to be able to say, hey, look what I did. Look what I did. Look what I did. And going back to my previous statement, we protect so much that it's hard for people to do what they used to do. I just had this conversation last week or 2 weeks ago where a friend of mine was talking about his kids and his kids outside playing. He's like, and his wife is saying, I don't want them to get hurt. And he's like, they got to get hurt. It's okay. And I responded back. I'm like, that's why they have practice teeth. You know, they're going to get new teeth. We call them practice teeth, but they have to. We all did it as kids, and it's okay. And it's okay in the real world too. When you get older and you've got a job, you have to make a mistake. You have to fail. I'm not saying
And
you have to get fired, but those are the lessons that are best learned by
mhm.
making a mistake. I had a young lady who worked for me, and I called her into my office one day and I said, I have good news and bad news. She goes, what's the good news? You need to make some mistakes. You need to make some mistakes. If you don't make some mistakes, we're going to have a different conversation. She said, what's the bad news? I go, that's the different conversation. If you don't make some mistakes by Friday, I'm firing you. And she's like, you're going to fire me if I don't make mistakes? And I said, you're so afraid of making a mistake, you're paralyzed. You're doing in one day what you should do in 1 hour because you're petrified. I don't need you to
Okay.
be petrified. I need you to go. And you're not going to put us out of business. You're not going to make a mistake. We're going to call a customer and curse them out. You're not going to set fire to the building. You're not going to do any detrimental damage. Go, make some mistakes, have fun. And I fired her because she wouldn't do it.
That is so beautiful, because I believe that even though when you were saying don't make mistakes that make you get fired, even if you get fired, that is a learned lesson um, of what not to do or what you can do better, how to do something
Absolutely.
better.
100%.
So
Everything's a lesson in life. I mean,
exactly.
but that's the mindset too. You
Yes.
know, you and I look at it and it's a lesson. What do I take from it? How do I react to it? And it's not going to end my life. Some
Yes.
people look at it, why did this happen to me? They're a bad person, or, different mindset. And I don't want to be around those mindsets.
Yes. Well, and sometimes sometimes it's not even your fault, like when you get fired, like you were saying before, it's probably the place that you were at, and then your lesson is that you need to find the culture that matches your core values.
Correct. Correct. And I'm a big believer in ownership. So if I get fired someplace like that, what did I do wrong? Okay. Did I not ask for enough information when I took the job? Did I not vet the place enough before I agreed to go work there? Now, granted, jobs that are a minimum wage job and somebody looking to do something versus a different type of job, people look at it in different aspects in different
Mhm.
ways. But I think at the end of the day, as a whole, if we can all internalize and look at ourselves and say, how could this outcome have been different? What could I have done? Without beating myself up, but what could I have learned? What approach could I have taken differently going forward? And will I next time? I think that's how we grow. And
Mhm.
I think that's how we enhance our accents,
Yes.
change our accents. I mean, that's what we need to do. And everything's about that self-reflection. I heard a speaker once say, I'm going to define wisdom for you. And he stole it right out of the dictionary. He goes, wisdom is experience matched with reflection. And I think the world needs to do a little more of that sometimes.
Yes, yes, exactly. And then also, leaders are there to help create impact in their teams. So we know, and we talk a lot. We mentioned the impact of a leader, but also how they also have to help their members and the team members be creative enough so that what they're doing is impactful in their lives.
Absolutely. I think, you're true leaders who understand the idea of impact and understand the idea of making the world a better place. Going back to that sports team, if their job is to help everybody get better, if you understand what that getting better means, it's having that ripple effect. So if my job is to help you become a better leader, have more impact, and help you to impact other people, and they impact other people, there's that ripple effect that we talked about. But everybody.
Hi, I'm very happy to know you are here watching our podcast today. It is an honor to be featuring so many entrepreneurs on the journeys of their inside voice, their accent that is not an accident. And we want to reach out more people like you who are creating a better world of diversity, inclusiveness, equity, and belonging. So please take a moment to hit the subscribe button below, like, and share to others. And if even if you want to leave a comment, that'll be nice. Thank you for your support. And now back to the episode.
But everybody has to find their own. What works for me based on my accent might not be what motivates in somebody else. I mean, there are the people who are going to be motivated by money. There are the people who don't want to do that, and they're happy doing what they do, and that's okay. I accept that. That just be the best at whatever you are, because that is also an impact. I had this conversation earlier today with one of the guys I work with. It's how you do anything is how you do everything, and somebody's always watching. So he had a birthday recently and he was like, I don't really celebrate it much because when I was growing up, it was never a big deal. I'm like, yeah, but you have kids now. They're watching you. Do you want them to know birthdays are not a big deal?
Oh, yeah.
Impact, right? Impact.
Yes.
I go, because it's not about you anymore. It's about your kids and their kids and how they feel and what they experience. So you're leading them and future generations. And you don't even think of it that way. None of us do. But if we could always put in our heads, somebody's watching. Somebody's watching. What am I teaching? It'll change how we operate our lives.
Exactly. And I think that it's also, like you were saying there, I would like to jump into something that is important, and it's like leaders also need to be in charge of making sure that the team among themselves create a positive impact with each other, and make sure that if there is any negative impact, there is an action that, or there is like immediate feedback.
Absolutely. There has to be. So negative impacts are in two ways. So you can have somebody with a bad attitude, that's a negative impact. And sometimes that's just a matter of understanding where's that attitude coming from, what has happened. And not everybody can check it at the door. Not everybody can, have a bad weekend and come in and be happy and positive. So sometimes it's, giving some understanding and giving some space, and that's okay. We're allowed to have a bad day. Life is hard, stuff happens. It's when you take that and transmit it willingly onto others, or you work to bring others down. And I think that's where accountability comes in. And that's where having a strong team comes in, because not one person has to be the bad guy and say, hey, Joe or Amanda, this behavior is not okay. It's team. It's like, hey, what happened to Joe? Because this isn't the person that we normally have. Or this is a different Amanda that's ever been here before. Who's this person? And can you get rid of her and bring the other one back? There's different ways to do it,
Yes.
right? But it's really about establishing what is okay and what's the right culture. Brene Brown has a great quote, and I heard it last week, and I've been, replaying it over and over and over. Clarity is kindness. Well, if you share what is okay and what isn't okay, it's perfectly okay to say, hey, this behavior is not okay. How you're acting, what you're portraying is not okay.
It's not okay. Yes.
Doesn't fit.
And that is very important to know, that the culture of your team, the culture of the company that you want to build, is understood in every single level.
Mm-hmm. We phrase, I stole it from someplace. I love it. What you tolerate, you endorse. And sometimes it's hard because, if this is our operational level and, somebody's having a rough day and they're here, and then somebody else gets here, and then somebody else gets here, and then somebody else gets there. Well, we were here and now we're tolerating to here. So this behavior, this whole gap has become okay. And it's not okay.
It's not okay. Yes.
It's not okay. And it creeps up on you. So it's, and this is why I think we need more than just one leader. It can't be just one person who holds the line. It's got to be the environment and the culture and everybody sticking to it.
Yes.
You look at the best sports teams, everybody on the team, they hold each other accountable. The coach is on the sidelines when it's game time. The coach can call some shots and do some other stuff, but it's those players who have to hold each other accountable, those players who have to have that loyalty to each other and want to deliver for each other. If they only want to deliver for themselves, again, no I in team, it doesn't work.
Yes. And that is so important, because we were talking about it before. Leader is not only one person. Everyone is the leader in a team.
Correct. Absolutely.
There is only one person that represents them.
Correct. I go back to the movie Braveheart, and I share a clip from Braveheart in a lot of my presentations. And it's after they fight the English and they win the first battle. And they're all having a big meeting, and the nobles are arguing with each other about who's the entitled person to be the king of Scotland. And Mel Gibson, who's William Wallace, is like, and he starts to walk away. And one of the guys says, wait, where will you go? What will you do? And he looks at him and he says, I will invade England and I will defeat them on their own territory. And they laugh at him and like, why? And they laugh at him and say, that's impossible. You can't do that. And he says, why? Why is that impossible? And I love that as a leader, because he's questioning what everybody thinks is status quo. Why is that impossible? And he says, as you sit here and squabble for the scraps, okay, I'm going to do what I'm meant to do, and I'm going to serve the people of this country because they should be free. He was nothing. He was, for lack of a better word, a homeless broke guy. But he had the courage and he had the smarts, and he was going to go do the right thing by the people. And he says this, he goes, there's a difference between me and you. You think your wealth and belongings, you think that people are here to help you gain more wealth and belongings. I think your wealth and belongings are here to help the people gain their freedom. And that says everything to me about leadership. It doesn't need a jacket and a tie. It doesn't need an office. It doesn't need anything. It needs a desire to help lift people up.
That is amazing. I love that. I absolutely love that, because we do that on a day-to-day basis, everywhere we are, everywhere we go, not only in the office, but also at home, at the grocery store, when we're, when we're going shopping, when we're driving.
It's every place. And our kids are watching, and somebody else is watching. And if we're all doing this stuff without even knowing it, we're making the world a better place. But everybody's got to be participating. It's a team effort.
Yes.
My goal is to make a bigger team. You know.
Yes, and it is so important to, because that builds a culture of your team, that builds your culture, your values, and
Hmm.
that it starts shaping everybody, and everybody starts changing. And maybe what today was important is going to grow later to
Absolutely.
more and more, because the company is growing. Everybody grows together.
Hmm.
So, and speaking of growing, then I am going to shift. And so Jordan Modiano started working on a nonprofit, and I would like to talk about race or autism.
Sure. So I got to give you that. I got to lead it up a little bit because it's where
Yes.
does Races for Autism come from?
Mhm.
So, you mentioned it before. One of my passions is racing cars. I've been racing something since I was old enough to fall off a bicycle. Um, and, quite a few years ago, racing cars, I decided my daughter has autism. And this will be a story for another time, but we talk about hero makers. She's my hero, but she's got autism. So I started to race the autism awareness car. And what happened over time is I picked up more and more fans, and more people would come to me and say things like, hey, I think I've got a grandchild on autism, or I've got a kid on autism, or we know somebody. But overwhelmingly, I heard, we don't know where to get help. We don't know what to do. We don't know what resources are out there. And I decided, let me take my two passions together. And I worked with the local racetrack, and we did an autism awareness race. And we did a decent sized payout, tied in a couple of local nonprofits, and did a race. And, the very first year we raised about $10,000 for these two autism charities. And part of the reason we raised that money was the driver who won the race. He won like 6,000. He just donated it all, which was pretty cool. So the next year we decided to ramp it, make it a little bit bigger. We had the upstate Chevy dealers come on board as a title sponsor. And 2023 was our second year doing it. And it just about killed me. I mean, for a one night event, the amount of work that went into it while I'm running my office and being a dad and everything and racing, it was like on my third full-time job or fourth full-time job. So I had decided if we're going to do it again next year, we have to charge more. We have to start a not-for-profit, and I've got to get some help. So everybody was happy with it. They wanted to do it again. So we decided we're going to start a not-for-profit called Races for Autism. We're going to build a website. We're going to spread more awareness. We're going to raise more money. We're going to do it bigger and better. So February of last year, or February of this year, it seems like last year already, but February of 2024, we started Racers for Autism, a not-for-profit, all about raising money for autism, raising awareness for autism, and guiding people on where do I go? If I have a question, who can help me? Who has some of that other stuff? And we this year we probably raised about I think it was $15,000. So in the 3 years we've been doing this, we're up close to 40. Our goal for the event for 2025 will be 35 to 40,000 for the one event for
Oh,
these two
wow.
charities, because it's important that, years ago it was 1 in 1,000 kids, then it was 1 in 500 kids, then it was 1 in 100 kids, then it was 1 in 76. Now it's 1 in 36, and they're saying by 2028 it's going to be like 1 in 6 kids are diagnosed with autism. It's extremely prevalent. A lot of people don't know about it. They don't know where to go and get help. And I have a daughter with autism, so it means the world to me. We'll go back and talk about accent. Never knew I'd be doing this, but it
Yes.
fits with who I am. It just has changed a little bit.
It it kind of reshapes
Correct.
what we were talking.
Well, it puts another scoop on the ice cream. So it's, all right, helping people, impacting people. Well, now let's add this community in and focus a little bit on this community of the autism community and what can we do there? And that
Mhm.
one becomes personal to me. So I'll get asked a lot of times, hey, can I donate or volunteer to this charity or this charity or this charity? No, no, no. Not that they're not important, not that I don't care, because I do. but I have to focus on here. I have to
Yes.
focus on the autism, because otherwise it diminishes that by whatever little I give away someplace else. And not that the other stuff isn't important, because they all are. There's not
Yes.
one that's more important than the other.
Yes.
I've got a dear friend who's focused on childhood cancer. I would do anything in the world for her, but I have to do autism, if that makes
Yes.
any sense.
Yes. Like that is your focus. And that's where you are like driving right now.
Mm-hmm.
So how can people help?
Best way to help? Well, two ways. To help me and the ones I support, you can go to
Mhm.
racersforautism.com and donate. That's the best way. But the other way, and this is back to being a leadership, and this is back to impact. When you see that kid having a meltdown in the supermarket, when you see that kid behaving poorly, think for a second. It might not just be bad parenting. It might not just be a bad behaved kid. It might be that that kid has just taken all they can take. They can't take any more, and they're having a meltdown. And a lot of people don't understand autism. I'll share this little tidbit that somebody with autism shared with me. And he said, pretend that you're at war. You're at a crazy war. Okay. It's nighttime. You're fully suited up. You're in a battle. You're in a trench. You're shooting. Bullets are flying by your head. There are bombs blowing off. The sky's lit up like crazy. You're seeing blood splattered every place and people screaming and bombs going off. And your grandmother comes walking up to you and says, "Hi, I'd like to teach you to knit now." And you look at her like, "Are you stupid? Get the hell away from me, you idiot." Well, grandma doesn't see the war. She doesn't see the battle. She doesn't hear the noise. She doesn't see the lights. She doesn't see any of that. She sees you lying there on the floor having fun. And she's just approaching for the best way. But you are in meltdown mode with your autism. There's no guns, there's no anything else, but that's just what it's like. And I heard somebody teach that, and I'm just sharing what he taught. And once I've heard that and I've shared with so many other people, it puts things in perspective. It's like, wow. Now I know my daughter feels that stuff. I've watched her. I've watched the petrified have to cover my ears. It's too much. I've watched that. So then to try and approach her and ask her to do something can lead to a meltdown. I remember we took her out to hibachi when she was just young, very young, and we didn't know, and totally freaked out and melted down. And we were all seated at this table, and I got up and walked out, and my wife and my parents stayed and ate, and she and I sat in the car. And I remember the dirty looks I got. And I remember the time she's had meltdowns and the dirty looks. And as a protective dad from New York, and my New York accent comes out, I want to go kill those people. Obviously, I can't do that. My mission should be to help them understand. And that's the biggest thing. If people can understand and just get that perspective, hey, their reality is different than my reality, and I don't get what they're doing, but I'm not going to judge. That'll make the world a better place. That's the biggest help people
Yes.
can do.
Yes. And I love that you are changing our perspective, because sometimes we jump into what you're saying, we jump into conclusions and we judge, and we don't know what's going on inside.
We, but that's human nature for every single one of us.
Uh-huh.
And that'll go back to our caveman and cavewoman days. We automatically go into fight or flight, make a decision and go. If you're driving down the highway and somebody cuts you off and is speeding through, that person's an a-hole, right? Okay. Or maybe their wife is giving birth in the back seat right now. Maybe they just got a phone call that their dad is taking his last breaths in 5 minutes and they're trying to get there. We don't know.
Mhm.
We tend to automatically assume the worst. I'm no different. I do the same exact thing. That's where we go on our initial reaction.
Yeah.
As we grow, if we can stop and say, wait, what could be a reason that's not negative? would I be pissed at that person if they were trying to say goodbye to their mom before she passed, or their kid, or they needed to get someplace to donate a kidney before somebody else died? Like, would I be
Mhm.
upset? Would I be doing the same exact thing they're doing? But as humans, we don't do that. And if we,
Yes.
and it's hard. That's hard. That's really hard. Going back to what I said about wisdom, we live in our life with our experiences and our everything else. So now I have to stop and take all of that, throw that away, and think, what if? And what if on a positive, not what if a negative? You know,
Yes, exactly. So then going forward, on the autism spectrum, when the kids grow up, how can employers help them be employable?
first it's going to come with understanding. So, I mean, uh, and autism is a spectrum. And that's a big thing that a lot of people understand. So you go from here to here, trying to get my hands even on the camera. So, somebody who's here might be fully functional and they just have a little challenge with understanding anything other than direct communication. While somebody's here might be a little more than just direct communication, but they might be overwhelmed by, sensory issues. And somebody's here might struggle with their own communication. So a part of it is understanding who you have. Okay. Next part is a conducive work environment. So some environments that, may not be bright, may not be very loud, may not be overly stimulating. Some environments that are overly stimulating are okay, but understanding the strengths. What are the strengths? Where's that focus? A lot of people on autism have the ability to get very focused on something and do it for long periods of time. Okay. A lot of people on autism have multiple other issues. So I look at my daughter, she's got autism, but she also has ADHD and anxiety. All right. So autism, I want to focus. ADHD, what's new? Okay. Anxiety is just too much. I can't do it.
Yeah.
So how do you understand and manage that? It's not a one size fits all. That's the biggest challenge for hiring people with autism. It's not one size fits all. It's not everybody can do this. It's kind of no different than hiring regular people. Understand where are their strengths, where do they fit in, how do they do it, and let's set up a system that works for them.
So we have to be more aware of the capabilities of the individual and get to know them, just like we do with anyone else.
Correct. And probably a few concessions, and some understanding. But I will tell you, when you do that and you create that right environment, there's a loyalty. There's a loyalty. There's hard work. Um, and take all of that away. There's a personal reward that you're doing something good. You're
Mhm.
making a difference in the world where that person needs that help.
Yes. And that is beautiful. So we're heading to the end, and I would like to give you the opportunity to tell our audience where they can find you and how they can contact you.
Uh, I can be found any place. So I get found a lot on LinkedIn. So go follow me on LinkedIn. It's easy. Just search for Jordan Modiano. I'm there on LinkedIn. You can go to, I've got jordanmodiano.com. Easiest way to find me. I think there's a phone number there. There's a contact form there. Um, you Google my name, you're going to find me. I'm definitely findable.
Awesome. Jordan, would you like to leave the audience with a last thought?
Sure. Everything you do, you have an opportunity to make the world a better place. And if you keep that in mind and you keep your mindset open, change the world for one person at a time, lead by example, and help everybody become a little bit better, your life gets tremendously better. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. That is beautiful. Thank you so much, Jordan. We spoke so many nice things today. We focused on leadership when we are saying a leader is not a manager. Therefore, we need to make sure that the leader is capable to help their team grow. And important thing, let's think about what Jordan says. Leaders are hero makers. Thank you so much for being with us today, Jordan.
Thank you for having me. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. And thank you to our audience today. And remember, you are a being of love who has come here to love one another. Thank you. And until next time, bye.
Bye.
Hi, it's Maritza here. If you like this episode of My Accent is No Accident podcast and would like to listen more like this, subscribe wherever you're listening to it or watching it. Leave us a nice review and share with your friends, family, and network. Thanks for listening.